Here we go. SuperMex bed. All right, here we go. Hit it. And no more of these. There's only a marker you can get. Dude, what happened? You're supposed to.
We're on. We're good. One way or the other.
Oh, we're really good. Yeah,
we're good.
We're live.
How you doing, everyone? Welcome to another hour of the SuperMex show. To the point. Following up on what we had last week is we're picking up on a 4-part. It looks like it may end up going a 5-part series on the west side of Fresno and Central Unified Community in particular. Hello, everyone, to Facebook Live. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a phone number for the show, and since this is recorded prior to when it airs on the radio on Saturday, you can go live with me now on Facebook, and thank you, by the way, to everybody over the last number of weeks since we began the format. We've had, I think this last show with the kids last week had over 1,400 going up to 1,500 views. It may not seem like a lot, but that's a big deal for me, and that's a big deal for us on our side of town. 1,500 is not an insignificant number when you're talking about a school system and a community. That total, I want to say our student body is around 16,000, 16K. So obviously the community at large is, in excess of that. But getting 1,000, 2,000, something like that is a significant number that is listening or wanting to know more, wanting to be involved, or wanting to hear more about what's going on current in our system. So thank you, again. And it looks like from now on we're going to be doing 1,000 to 2,000 listeners, every week as we go forward. So what I want to do for those of you that are listening current on the Facebook Live show, I will give you the phone number, or I will post the phone number on here, and you can call in as we're going through this. Please, and I'll do it up front. Keep it legit, keep it clean, keep it lucid in thought in terms of what you're asking or what you're bringing up. Even if it's just a comment, that's cool too. But I'd definitely like it to be, as we're going forward, we have a guest in tonight or today, and we will be talking about issues pertaining to Central Unified Community, West Side, etc. in general. And you're more than welcome to go ahead and phone in, or go ahead and post in, ask a question or add a comment on the Facebook Live to my right here as you're watching me, on your left actually. So please feel free to weigh in. We did get plenty of positive comments from last week's show, and I can only see that growing as we go forward. So that was last week. With me today, before we get into some housekeeping, with me today is a parent in Central Unified. Her name's Mike Cruz. He has a son in the system at the high school and a young girl coming up through the system in the lower grades. And Mike is a resident of our community, parent, etc. So Mike's with us, and thank you to Mike, because it appears that it's difficult getting parents and regular work folk, like I said, regular work people, people that actually work a day, have a regular living, getting them in during the day. So I'm going to have to be better, and I'll be honest, I don't lie, play games, or prevaricate and smoke screen. I tried, it was kind of weird, but there were more than a few moms and dads that would like to have come on, but the time was prohibitive. So I will be better about finding an adequate time that we can get a few more parents. So what ends up happening, I'm letting Mike know, I'm talking to Mike now. So what we'll do is we'll make this a 2-part series, 2-part within the 5-part series. It went from 4 to 5 parts. So I'm going to have a day that we discuss kids' issues from kids' perspective, which we did last week, which was really, really cool and incredible. I was like, wow, got some things from them that I would not have known otherwise as an adult. We'll talk about that in a second. So today's show, into the weekend for Saturday, 3 to 4 on AM 1680, The Answer, will be parents, a parent today, a father, a parent or kids in the system. So next week, we will add in as many as we can because I'll work out a better time that we can coordinate more parents to get in, at least, another 2 or 3. And we'll just address the issues that they face and the things that, we'll just say challenges that our parents deal with on the West Side in Central Unified, and discuss solutions. I'm a firm believer. It's like you can complain and cry about what's there or what isn't there. However, what are you offering in return? What are you offering up that can potentially solve a problem? Or, and heaven forbid we do this, avoid future problems. Avoid future problems, right? So that's kind of where we're at, and that'll be 2 parts. We're going to do 2 parent shows over the next 2 successive weeks, this week and then next week. Then we push back, obviously. We'll go to teachers. We're going to have 4 teachers on the show discussing their perspective on the challenges and issues that they face in trying to educate our children. And then succession, obviously, would be the conclusion with our 3 board members. For those of you that don't know in the community, board members, due to Brown Act, the governing, not document, but the governing set of rules that board members have to abide by, stipulates that they cannot be in excess of 3, meaning 4, because that would be a majority of our board, 4 out of 7. They can't be in any one place at any one time. There are exceptions, obviously, but you definitely can't talk about board business or school business in a forum where there's more than 3 of them, and that would be a majority. So we can't do that. So we can get 3 on at a time and discuss the issue if they're willing to. But I'm fairly positive I'll get at least 3. Those of you in our community that know that I will get at least 3 board members that will discuss, or at the very least, maybe we just put them on the firing line. We start shooting them in it and tell them that, you're going to listen to what, and I'm okay with that. Nothing personal. I'm not trying to, make them less. But in essence, a board position is what? You get elected by a community of people to represent that group of people. So it's on us, ladies and gentlemen, out in the community to raise issue and raise things that happen that we are concerned with your board members. I mean, you can take them, and I've seen this ad nauseum with, our community and the school system in general. They say, go talk to so-and-so, go talk to so-and-so. I'm tired of talking to so-and-so and then watching as nothing, is ultimately resolved, including the issues that we'll be talking about today regarding the high school and the high school situation with 3 campuses, shuttling, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll get to that in a bit. But again, I got Mike Cruz. I'll let Mike talk in a little bit and introduce himself. But housekeeping before we get started. Good positive thing. I'm real happy about this. So I think it's Alex Honeycutt and a young dude named Bradley Salvador. And it turns out I actually know their family. I didn't even realize that I coached Bradley's cousin. Coach Bradley's cousin, Hannah Montana Salvador. He was at Madera South when Madera South first opened doors in the zeros, and really happy. He was a pleasurable kid. I mean, just like always on for whatever we were going to do. So coached his cousin, and I won't go into all the particulars because there's a lot of it on Keeping Central Unified, the Facebook page done by a friend of my wife and I, and on that forum for our community, there's by the way, let's get up to 2,000. Let's get Mrs. Bolton's page up to 2,000, 2K members of our community discussing, talking, issue, policy, and whatever goes on. So it's on there. These 2 gentlemen, I mean, they even flew back. I don't know if you saw this, Mike, but they flew back to New York and they presented what they called String Box. It's a creation of theirs as young entrepreneurs, and they created this thing. I'll let you do the research on it. You listener, go into Keeping Central Unified, ask to be a part of the community, and you take a look at what these kids did. It was phenomenal. They're just creating, and they're Central High School students succeeding, in spite of any difficulties or challenges that they may have. and just a really good family. And I'm really proud of our community for stepping up and getting them the votes that they needed to win a component part of the overall competition. So they went to New York and they had to present their idea to a panel. They didn't win that portion, from what I understand. And again, I'm not 100%. Maybe I'll have the mom on or the dad on one of these days, and they can talk a little bit more. Maybe the boys. Maybe we'll have the boys come and they'll talk about their product and what they've created. So they went on and they got to, I think, go on GMA. They had like Michael Strahan. They presented in front of a panel in New York, which is really cool. Flew back just this past week, and they didn't win that portion. However, there was a vote component, and the vote component, I think they did win, and the cha-ching status went up because I think they won $2,500 for their idea and their concept, which that's pretty good. That's $25 in this economy, especially for some young dudes, right? So I'll give you a look right in the eyes, like really thankful to our Central Unified community for making those dreams possible for two of our young men, two of our young people in the community, in the district. And I think and she forgive me, please, if I'm overstepping here, Mrs. Salvador, but I think I messaged her when we were getting closer toward the deadline closing for the votes. Like I said, we are the largest high school in Central California. Mike knows this. He's heard it from me plenty of times. We're the largest high school in Central California. If we can't get, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, maybe 1,000 votes, like what the hell's going on? We gotta muscle up, basically. That's what I've told people. We have numbers. If not in talent alone, we have numbers, so that in my world, we should be crushing it, in any capacity, especially when it's something, ladies and gentlemen, as simple as a vote. That's just effort and work and people making phone calls or posting online and following up. And Mrs. Salvador was extremely good about that. She was more than aggressive in a positive way about getting that out to our community and letting people know. And then friends called friends, families called families. And I thought it was really cool because I got to find out that it turns out their family I know their family, which was, part and parcel of what we need to be doing in our community is connecting, building bridges and starting to work together, even on issues that we don't totally agree on. Let's sit down and have a discussion. Maybe I don't agree with you, maybe you don't agree with me, but damn it, let's come to some kind of consensus. Let's compromise a little on one end or the other and then move forward on that issue. So Alex and Bradley, congratulations, young dudes. Real proud of you, and I'll speak for the entire community, Central Unified. That's what we want to see. Kids succeeding regardless of what challenges you face at home or in the school or wherever, for that matter. And those kids are right out of our community. They're right out of Central Unified. I'm extremely proud of them. So thank you. I will thank my listeners because I know that Mr. Salvador said that we definitely got a spike in number after the show. I don't know what it was. I have no way of knowing. I just know that I made a plea and I know I got on and voted too. So we got some numbers out of our show, and I want to thank my listener and people that tune in to listen. I want to thank you personally for doing that. It did matter. It immediately affected some young dude's life, and that's pretty damn cool. So we are getting in the meat of our show. One last bit of housekeeping. Okay, so somewhere about halfway through our show, this is for my wrestling community out there. I do have a lot of friends in this area, in the region, that are friends in the wrestling community, and we lost a good person last night. I don't want to talk too much and give a lot of particulars because I really don't have all the particulars. I just know that he passed last night out of practice or from a practice, after practice, and his name is Gary Quintana. He is former Selma wrestler resident, a longtime coach at Clovis West High School. He was at Bullard High School, and ultimately he was at Clovis North High School. In various capacities, assistant coach, head coaches at all of those differing programs. And I want to pay a special tribute to Gary. He came to me last night as I was, I posted something on our page for wrestlers. It's the Central Valley Wrestling Association homepage on Facebook, and I just kind of acknowledged. I'm a past president of that organization, so I felt it necessary. Gary was a longtime lifelong member of Central, the Central Valley Wrestling Association, and a lifelong wrestler. And let's do this. I mean, everybody knows somebody that passed at some point in their life. It's just part of life. And then you say something positive about him, and you go forward and you want, okay, I want to go a step further. I can say a lot of great things about Gary. He was a good guy. I mean, he genuinely was. What I posted yesterday was this. I don't feel at any time in my life dealing with Gary or working with Gary that there was ever any ulterior motive other than what he felt was good for the kids that we were discussing or working with at the time. I never felt like there was anything selfish in his discussion or thought process. And that speaks volumes. I'm not going to, slam all of wrestling or in people in general, but not everybody deals that way. Most people tend to act in their own interest, and so be it. That's cool. But Gary never, at least I never felt he was making decisions based on what's good for him and what he can get out of something. He literally framed and filtered everything in the context of how does this benefit the kids we're dealing with. So here's the difference between, a shout out that some people would do. This is what I will say about Gary. We didn't just lose somebody who had done good things over a lifetime in a particular region or area or sport. We're talking about sport. It's not the most important thing on the planet. And I will say that because I love the sport too, but there are far more significant things to our community and our people. But within that context, I will say this, that Gary just didn't influence hundreds, well, take that back, thousands. I know that over decades of work and a life, he affected thousands of lives, thousands. And who knows how many of those? I can't know. Nobody can really know, but I think everybody that will listen to this today knows that he affected thousands of lives. But more significantly, and this is the main point, this is the difference, is that Gary was continuing to do so. He wasn't done. He was continuing, even to that point where he was doing what he loved to do. I mean, the guy passes and he's doing what he loved to do. He worked with kids. He coached wrestling, and he affected lives day to day for an entire adult life. Before I get into a little more, and before we let Mike talk a little, Mike is also a fellow serviceman. So I'm gonna equate this because I've heard a lot over the last few weeks, and I think for some obvious reasons, right? The flag situation and things like that. People speaking for or talking about what's good for veterans and service people. It's amazing. There are things I didn't even know about us. But where's the correlation with what I'm talking about and talking about a life, in my opinion, well lived? Gary Quintana, Soma, wrestling coach, and I count him as a friend. He was a friend to me. I admired him growing up. I wasn't anywhere near as good as Gary in wrestling. I mean, I started like a junior. I just thought he was that kid from Selma that was incredible and badass, and he went out there and he beat people, and he represented our region and our area well. He was a little Mexican dude from Selma that went and destroyed people, and I admired him because I wanted to be like that. I wanted to be like him. For those of you that do know me intimately or even on a conversational or social level, I don't hand out compliments very often. I do not. And it's not because I don't care about other people, because I believe that compliments should be significant in and of themselves. I believe that compliments should be meant and not just something you do to pass air. But I really like this guy. He was a good guy. And loss for our community, and not just wrestling. As I was saying, he was still doing the job, man. He's in his 40s, and he was still on the mat working with kids, and he affected lives daily. Big loss on our part. So the correlation is this. That's what I call service. The guy gave his entire adult life to working with kids. So I'm sure Mike will agree. That's service. If you're doing it without selfish motivation, so here's the message to everyone out there that's listening. Do it without thought or pretense of getting more or benefiting yourself. This guy did it that way. And how do you know that? Because if you knew him and you knew his life, he didn't have a whole lot to show on the other end, meaning fiscal or financial. He wasn't a filthy rich billionaire or anything like that. He just did what he believed was right. He did what he believed was good. And the result was he lived a good life, and he took care of himself and his family and his people, and he benefited everybody around him. That's, to me, that's leadership. To me, that's service. So that's the practical lesson for my listener today. Service takes many forms, and I know Mike will agree with me on that. Service takes many, many forms. Gary Quintana was a serviceman in my world, in my eyes. So let's get on to the meat of this mess here. And at some point about halfway through our program, we'll break, and I'm going to pay tribute to Gary with something that I think will respect who he is, who he was, and just good meaning. And you guys will get it once we play it. So we'll take this, the first time that we'll do this, we'll take a break mid-show, and I'll play some music for you to honor a friend. Okay, so off that, good and bad news. But in my world, it's all good as long as you're progressing and you're moving forward. So let's get down to some meat and potatoes. So Mike's here. I'm going to let Mike introduce himself a little bit because I've talked plenty and he's listening. He's on my show, right? But housekeeping, you know how it is, Mike. Good housekeeping. You gotta just address the things that are there. So Mike, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background leading up to where we are now, and then definitely speak to your children and where they are within our system.
Yeah, my name is Mike Cruz. I have a son named Marcus. He's actually a senior this year at Central I, East Campus, all 4 years. He's part of the technology program. Actually, he's about to enroll at Fresno State. And I have a daughter named Mia, who's actually a first grader at Harvard Elementary. She's currently playing soccer, very athletic, and I've been in the
That's better.
in the neighborhood for only 10 years.
A decade.
And actually, the reason why we moved in this area is because it was growing out here, and at the time they said that Central was going to build a new high school. That was 10 years ago.
One decade. One decade.
And so that's actually probably the main reason why we moved here. Was we were like, oh wow, we're going to be part of a new high school. Be great for our kids. Hasn't happened yet.
So optimism. Let's begin with that, because more housekeeping. So listen, I know I've got some listeners out there that they're listening, but they don't want me to be listened to because we're raising issues that are touchy and that are bold-face on the surface, meaning they're out there, they're right in front of us, and we're not addressing them or we're not getting them done. And there are those, and I'll just say it flatly, that would rather we not talk about it, or rather we in particular, myself, Mike, and others. And by the way, I mean, there's plenty. I mean, I've got friends that are generations deep, Mike. I like to tell people, and then I'll let you continue again because I want to find out a little bit more about your kids in particular, that we've got an older, Central Unified, and we've got newer Central Unified. And I think we're at that apex point where the number of newer, and that's relative, right? Depending. I mean, somebody newer can be moved in yesterday. Somebody can be newer that moved in 20 years ago, at least in the context of somebody like myself or others that have been in Central for generations. What I tell people is when that time comes where that tipping point is, you have, and I want my listener to follow with me. I mean, we're not doing, Latin conjugation or calculus here, but you have to think about this for a second before we begin the process. The process is this. We have a number, say some arbitrary number out there of thousands that have moved into, you're one of them, that have moved into the community, moved into Central Unified School District. That number has increased at least, successively over many, many years, including decades. And when we talk about decades, you're 10 years. Mm-hmm. But there are people that have moved into the community for different reasons, but most of them optimistic reasons for sure. What could be or what would be there or not there, arbitrarily, right? So over that time, thousands of people have moved into our community, and that number has increased significantly enough to where I would guess that, and I think there are people that found this out, the not pleasant way or the hard way over the last 2 election cycles, that just being an old Central name, whatever that name is not enough to guarantee you a victory in an election, because the electorate has changed. The electorate, for those of you out there in my community, the electorate has become more urban. The electorate has become more new central, meaning not graduate of. The electorate is a component that is, I would say, in the middle income or slightly right, either right below or right above middle income. If you had a continuum of like a 1 to a 100, if the general spot in the center is 50, right? We fluctuate, I would say, and I could be wrong, and if I am, then take me to task. Please do. I've been a bad kid today. So we're in that 50% range. I'd say we're a middle income for the most part, but we're not a high middle income community. I mean, we still have plenty of pockets that are not incredibly wealthy. So that number has increased, and what it means is you have newer people. What I said was that when the time comes, and I said this in the 90s, by the way, when the time comes when the newer people and their expectation, that's you, Mike, when their expectation meets the, I guess, lack of belief on the part of a lot of us that have been here a long time waiting for these things to, the growth that was promised and the growth that was promised, when those two beasts collide, we're going to be in a good spot. Because I've been around more than a decade, obviously, and I've been waiting. I was here in 96 when they promised us that the solution for building a new campus, and I'm going to say not high school, but campus, listener. They built a new campus. That's the East Campus. That was in 96. We're in 2017. That was 21 years ago. And at that time, administration and people in leadership back then told us that was only temporary. Those two schools would be split, and we would have two fully fledged high schools with comprehensive programs at both.
Two high schools?
Two high schools. Two high schools. Not two campuses, not three campuses, but two high schools. Now, so I'm taking you back. Obviously, you've been, you moved in 10 years ago for the promise or the optimism of a possibility that we get a, cool looking, brand new, state of the art, something to be, here I go, listener, this is for you in my community, something to be proud of, high school. That's what we want. That's what we've expected. That's what we were promised. And that's what we have as a context for what we think we deserve. And I'm there. So, Mike, you've been waiting 10. You moved here specifically for that.
Yeah.
Okay. I've been waiting 21 for a promise that was, specifically for that. So this goes to what we were discussing last week, and we'll get into a little bit more of that in a second. Mike, go ahead and give me a little bit more about your kids so that we have that. So you said Marcus is?
He's a senior in high school. He's in the technology program. He's going to enroll at Fresno State.
Okay. Is he primarily at East or West?
Primarily at East.
Primarily at East. Does he shuttle at all?
No, only because he was.
So he's primarily at East entirely now.
Well, since his freshman year, because he was in the technology program.
So he's never been at West.
He's never been at West.
You dirtball.
Never been at West, but he's had friends that do shuttle.
I got you.
But
that's okay. So that is becoming. So we had 4 students on the show last week. 4. They've all shuttled at one time or another. At any one time, they've all shuttled. So that's kind of more of a rarity. And you know what? A rarity that I would prefer, because I prefer kids not shuttle.
Yeah.
I think everybody knows where I'm at after last week's show.
No, I agree. But what was troubling too is that you can't even go to like the rally sometimes because the gym was just too packed.
You're talking about at the East Campus.
Yes.
So they have a rally.
For like football, whatever.
Yeah.
You can't go because it's
too big, too crowded. Too crowded. Wow.
Yeah, and so he has to sit in the cafeteria.
Whoa. You know what, I guess, so I'm guilty as charged, listener. I mean, I don't know all of that. I don't know, some of the hard particulars about things. And like I was sharing right before with Mike, before we came on, before we went live, that last week's show, the young dude, Juan, talked about something that totally blew me away. And I did not know because I'm an adult and I don't deal with it. I don't have to. This kid has trouble going to the bathroom because he has to make the bus to shuttle back over to the other campus. And if he doesn't get to the bathroom in time, you can't go to the bathroom on the bus, right? You can't do it on the bus. So he has to hustle, hold it, get on the bus, and then haul to the classroom at the next place to be in time to get into the next class. And so my point is that's another issue that that my listener, because most of you are adults, we don't process, we don't understand, we have no context for, because we don't deal with these things unless our kids are specifically dealing with it. But then again, we're getting how would I explain this? We're getting it secondhand. We don't deal with it. So in your case, your son, I mean, listen, let's do this. So for those that are going to cry and complain about us complaining, whatever. Okay, so, oh, he doesn't get to go to the rally. It's not, we'll say this, it's not the end of the world, but, okay, go to lunch.
Let's talk about lunch. There's times where, okay, how many high school students are going to run to the lunch line? Not very many. But there's times where he doesn't have time to eat at lunch because the lines are so long.
What is do you know what and I don't, not saying, this is a fact-finding mission for me too, by the way. So how long is a lunch? Do you know, roughly?
I don't know, what, 45
hour,
minutes?
45?
I have no idea, honestly.
Okay, so, but not, you're saying he doesn't have enough time to get in the line.
Yeah, well, no, because the lines are so long.
Well, I'd imagine the line's got to be massive. We have 4,300 students. So and they're split out, ladies and gentlemen, over 2 campuses, but even still, the campuses are not big enough to house the bodies that we have.
And then, let's just say if he were to get lunch, he has nowhere to sit.
Okay.
And sometimes he said that they ran out of food.
Ran out of food?
Yeah, like they would run out of food in the cafeteria, so they tell him to go jump in this other line, and that line's massive.
What would the other line be for?
It's somewhere
just
outside.
another lunch, or
yeah, something? I have no idea.
I mean, because I would imagine that, and this is just me finding rationale. I would imagine that they have to be fed, or they have to have lunch available to them. You know what I mean? So the other line is what? Not a snack bar, a thing like that, right? I'm talking about a real lunch.
I would hope so, but I even brought that up to the principal at East Campus last year. We had a meeting at this campus.
Okay.
I forgot what the name of it was, but we're trying to get involved and share the ideas or whatever.
Not site council. That's different. There's a parent advisory committee, I think.
I don't know, but the principal was there when I brought up that issue.
Okay, so principal was there.
And he was shocked himself to hear
that. Really?
Yeah, he was shocked. And I'm just glad this year that he only has 4 classes, so he's home for lunch.
Okay.
Yeah, he has 4 classes.
Okay, a senior.
Yeah, he's a senior. Yeah.
So he can come home.
Yeah, he can come home for lunch.
Okay, but so let's do this. You're a former serviceman. I am too. It's not just about our kids, right? So you're saying that they're probable that there are other kids out there that are not being fed or don't have the ability to get in line to get food.
Yeah, and like I said, if it's happening to my child, who else's child is it happening to?
More than a few.
Yeah.
More than a few. And my thing is, like, I don't know if I would say majority on that. I don't know. I can't speak to that issue specifically with a lot of clarity and authority. But I'm going to guess it's kind of like I said with the shuttling thing, where I had 4 kids. They all shuttled at one point or another. This is the first time you didn't have to shuttle at all.
And that's only because he's in the technology program.
Okay, and that's just because of that. But my point is this: is that it's more the norm than it is not that these other things take place that, in my opinion, should not be taking place. A child not fed, a child having to jump on a bus to go 20, 30 minutes somewhere else, 15, 20 minutes, to another location. And I think I've told you this before anyway. We're the only school that does that right now in this area, this region. We're the only one. So somebody brought up, because they said they had heard an administrator or somebody in the district office say something like, well, the housing market crashed in 7 and 8. And basically, this is an old central dog like me, old farming family. He said, I'm tired of hearing excuses. I'm just tired of hearing the damn excuses. I hear this and I hear that, but all I see is no result. I'm like, you're with me on that one. It's like, where's the result? So if in 21 years, and this is for the listener, and so we're going to make it really, really simple. You can hear a million reasons why not, including you, Mike. I mean, you've been here a decade, right? You have expectation. You have want. You purchase land and property or a home, and you're living and you're part of our community now, and you were hoping for something, and that hope is not realized, at least not yet. We could talk about when later. But point of fact is it's been 21 years since we constructed another high school, which is too small, by the way. The East Campus, and anybody that knows this, is too small. It's too small. If you go walking around the place, it's crowded, and it's too small. It does not house adequately the facilities that we need for children to get a high quality education and to not want for lack of facilities and education. And so why are you saying that? Well, because I think our kids deserve as good as anybody else. That's the simplest form of it. Instead, what they have to do is we have to make excuses. Well, they're okay, or they get by. And one of the kids was even doing that. Well, it's not too bad. My thing is like it shouldn't be bad at all.
Yeah.
Too bad is too more than bad. not good. It's not good. So too small. Let's do this because Mike can't be with me the entire time.
My dad's out.
Oh, he's going to be good. Okay, but we're going to do this. Okay, so I really want this. We still got about 20. We're going to end up having 20 minutes to finish up because I want to bring back and talk a little bit about what the kids talked about last week to correlate it with your son and then your daughter potentially come into the school. We can get that. But this is for my wrestling community and he wasn't just known in the wrestling community, by the way. My buddy Gary, my dog Gary, I heard this a couple weeks ago on SNL. For those of you that don't know, Tom Petty passed a few weeks ago. We had the mess and and I can't describe enough the stupidity of the Vegas situation. And the performer that was playing at the time that happened was Jason Aldean. I'm not like a current hardcore country fan. I'm more of not that I don't like some of the music I do. I love country in general. But I'm an old school Alan Jackson, George Strait, Clint Black, Garth Brooks guy, right back to Kenny, Willie Whalen, the boys. I mean, that's where my country roots are. So I do like country and I do listen to some. I don't know these guys as well as I do the others. However, I heard this and it kind of floored me. It was a spectacular rendition, paying respect to Tom Petty and the stuff that happened in Vegas. I'm using it for my listener in my community to pay respect to a friend of mine that passed that was a serviceman in his approach to what he did in our community. So go ahead and listen to that for us, viewer. I said viewer. Should be listener. So I'm going to take these off because we're still on here.
Oh, yeah.
And you guys can't hear it on there. Oh, man. All right, we'll figure that out. So what'll go on is Mike and I will continue to talk, and then we'll get back on the air. But they're playing the rendition of "Stand My Ground" by Tom Petty that came out on Saturday Night Live this past weekend, or a week and a half ago. It's just incredible, man. I mean, it's just it's a good song anyway. It's Tom Petty, right? How can you not like Tom Petty? You have any bone for rock and you like Tom Petty, but this guy did the rendition of "Stand My Ground," and the lyrics are potent. The lyrics are really, really strong, and they're meaningful for a time now that we are dealing with some not pleasant things. So they're playing that now when that cuts out. So this is for the listener on the radio. Let's say it again, AM 1680, The Answer, every 3 to 4 o'clock on Saturdays. And listener, for me personally, Facebook listener, we will go to a live format probably daily sometime in November, December, and I'll be on the air daily. Wow. Ooh, yeah, you got to, obviously it's not just going to be Central Unified stuff. It'll be stuff that has to deal with, more than just a particular region. I don't want to talk about just Central issues ad nauseum every single day. Believe it or not, I do not, even though my community is near and dear to my heart. And I do believe we need to discuss issues and policy that affect us. There is a larger world out there, and contextually, it does give you a better filter and perspective if you can address your issues filtered through the larger of everybody else out there, aside from the people in our community. So 2 minutes. So they're playing that now. So Central.
Say the number again.
The number for
The
phone number?
Yeah.
What is the phone number, Wood Dog? He's listening to the music. He listens to Tom Petty. Okay, so the radio station, and I'll get that in a second, but the radio station is AM 1680, The Answer. That's the official AM 1680, The Answer. So if you can watch now, share out the Facebook Live component.
And look at the questions. I guess teacher Scott is saying, why shuttling is happening somewhere in the comments.
Yeah, where is it? Oh, there it is. Wow. Okay. Wait. Oh, way cool. Okay, that's what I was looking at. So it pops up. All right, we're about 1 minute. We're finish up Tom Petty and Jason Aldean. So, all right, and so Scott, I don't know you personally. Facebook Live, if you're looking on here. Basically, Scott, for those of you that can't see it, is saying Scott Donaghy, I think that's an Irish name. I could be wrong. Shuttles mean we have too many students. I'll hold that for 1 second as we're about to come back live. You listen to this music all day. Love Tom Petty, man. Hey, Tom Petty had like the coolest, just like the vibe was always. Yeah. The music was good, obviously, but damn, you just couldn't help but. Hey, I'm back, guys and listeners. So live from Fresno, it's Friday. I hope you appreciate that. That was from my buddy Gary, and man, those words are impactful and meaningful for a time that, hey, America, we need to get our heads on right, man, and let's get this right. So Mike has pointed out he's better at it than I am already.
He's a teacher at East, by the way.
Scott Donaghy, teacher at East. I should know that. You're gonna kill me. So shuttles mean we have too many. This is a comment, Facebook, and my live audience, or excuse me, my audience on the radio. Scott Donaghy. Shuttles mean we have too many students. Let's split the campuses. They miss too much class. Okay, that's about as simple as it gets because it relates back to what we talked about last week. Okay, Mike and I, we're not hangout buddies or anything. I've gotten to know Mike a little bit over the last year as a parent that has gone to some board meetings and has questions. And I'm like, yeah, do that. Ask questions. Hey, listen, I'm not telling you to listen to me and take me for the gospel. By far, no. I'm a heathen. I'm a bad guy. But listen and ask questions. Don't bury your head in the sand, and don't be okay because your child is good or is getting what you think they need. I mean, really, this is about everybody's child getting what they need, because if every child gets what they need in education, then we're growing a better citizenry, and we are a stronger country for it. It's that simple. And I mean, it's you don't need a U.S. history teacher to tell you what makes a better country. A more informed, more in tune, more dedicated and committed, invested citizenry is what makes a strong country, which made us the strongest country. I'll say that, explicitly. That's what made us the best. So Scott's point is simple, because I've had this discussion with Mike. I won't claim it only because it's like part and parcel of a long extended period of time, but I know I can tell this to Mike directly, and I know he knows it because I've been talking about splitting the two campuses that we do have for well over 10 years because it's too long. So not only do we need, and let's get to that point. So I want to make it explicit. So, and Mike's, like kind of nodding his head because he moved here because there was promise of something new and shiny and cool, right? Something good for his kids growing up and going through. So we've already failed, and I'm going to say it. We have failed his son already. Apologies, Mike, but the fact is we failed his son, at least in that concept. And now he's got a little girl. How old's the daughter?
She just turned 7.
So 7. What grade?
First grade.
She's where?
At Harvest.
Okay, so she's in Harvest, little girl. And so Mike's at the full gamut. He's got one that's older, and he's got a little girl that's at Harvest. And I'm going to say it, Community Central, we're failing his kids and a whole bunch of others if we are not delivering on the promise of, and I'm going to say it explicitly, let's be clear here, splitting the 3 campuses that we have. People forget about the performing or the West Arts Center. That's the old Pershing High School. For those of my alumni homies that know that, the West Arts Center is what used to be the old Pershing High School, the continuation for Central High School. So we have 3 campuses separated by miles, and that we shuttle kids back and forth to. That needs to happen. Here's why, and this one's going to be hard hitting, and about as hard hitting as it gets. If we do not split those 2 campuses, now or anytime soon, and we just build a new campus. So here we go. You know, like this, listener, this is simple number for you. This is really, really easy because Mike knows I've put it in his ear. Definitely hammered him about this. We are going from one high school, 3 campuses. One high school, 3 campuses. Not good. Not good. And the only high school doing that, by the way, in the region. And for many years now doing that. We're the only ones. And that's not a positive thing. I'd rather we be number 1 in AP exam scores. I'd rather be number 1 in our standardized testing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. We are number 1 in other things, but I want the nuts and bolts, meat and potatoes, academic result, number 1. Okay. So one high school, 3 campuses, central. 3 campuses, 1 high school. If we build a new high school, all we're doing is going to 2 high schools, 4 campuses for 2 high schools. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't dig on that subtraction addition by subtraction. In other words, it perpetuates and continues. It will continue because there's no choice not to. There will continue to be shuttling. Only at more schools, only at more sites. We'll have 4 sites that kids shuttle to. And I don't know this, so I won't speak on it again with authority, but maybe the new high school ends up being its own boundary, its own place, and everybody that goes to that high school doesn't have to shuttle. There's a can of worms for you. Do you want to be the Central High student at the East or West campus that doesn't go to the new high school and still has to shuttle while the new high school student does not? That's not good. And I don't think that answer is been solved in advance of the problem. I have not heard anything about that. But I think you all know, because I mean, this again, the one thing that I can say specifically, I don't lie, cheat, play games, and hoorah around about the truth. This is really simple. If we build a new high school, even if we got it tomorrow, by the way, it's promised in 21. And I say promised because I've been waiting since
21? I thought it was 20.
21.
21?
21.
It's supposed to break ground next year.
They could be breaking ground, doesn't mean it's up and running.
Well, I mean, I thought high school took 5 years ago.
Okay, it depends on how they roll it out. Can a high school open? Yes.
Okay.
Does it mean it's completed?
Oh,
No.
okay. All right.
No. So 21 is what I've got. If I'm wrong, somebody can correct me, but 21 is what I've got for right now.
The books have much to say 21. Though.
Okay, 21, right? Let's go with that. And I still want to stay on that frame of thought because it's important. And you're a parent. You need to hear this. You need to know this, and you need to continue to ask questions. So 21 is what we've got now. But for listener, Central people, 2021 is a new campus, new high school, but it's only going to be an academic building and a few other things. And I don't have them all specifically in front of me, and I kind of know this because I'm on the oversight committee that kind of tells you about what's coming. All I've heard so far is a lot of, costs are going up. Steel is going to be more. There's just all I hear right now is about how much more it's going to cost us than what we thought. So 2021, stay with me for 1 second, but there will be no pool. There will be no performing arts center and a couple other things that will not be in existence when the campus opens.
Wow.
So it's going to be kind of a half school.
I understand.
and I just, and I have a problem with it. Maybe others don't. If you don't, I'm sorry. Then don't listen and don't listen to what I have to say. But I've got a problem with that. I mean, I've been waiting 21 years for them to split the other 2 and make 2 fully fledged, really good looking, teched out campuses, 2 high schools. So they're promising this one. So we get it. There'll be 4 campuses for 2 high schools. I've already said about, who knows how the shuttling is going to go, because I don't, and I don't think anybody really does right now. Nobody can say with specificity exactly what's going to happen in terms of shuttling if we did open a new high school tomorrow. Okay, so it's not. So I want to make sure I'm clear. That's 2021. But even when that happens, if it happens, because a lot of people like me are pessimistic, and I'll say it, I don't care if anybody doesn't like it. You lose optimism and gain pessimism over time when things don't happen. You tend to believe less. So I want to believe, but all evidence flying to the contrary, it's kind of hard for me to believe. So 2021 it opens. It's going to be not a full campus. I won't even say half because charge me with inaccuracy. But it's clearly not and definitely not going to be a full campus, meaning it's not going to have everything that students need on one site. And it'll be built out over years. I don't even know how many, because what we've heard now is that the governor isn't releasing funds. And that's enough with blaming the governor. I'm tired of that too. Okay, let's blame some nebulous blob source, something other that we can point a finger at, because I'm tired of that kind of politics too. We'll blame somebody out there that is responsible for all of our woes. Here's one thought, and I'll let you jump in too. How the hell did they do Hanford and Hanford West? I know that's done. I know for a fact, because I taught at Madera High when they were doing their situation with two. It didn't take 21 years to split those two campuses. It's more like 10 or less. I could be wrong, but I know it wasn't 21 Central. So I'm just saying, get it right. Don't wait. We're waiting as long as what? No high school in the history of this region has gone on that long waiting for actuality in terms of splitting the campuses or building a new one. Go ahead, jump in, Mike.
No, it's just like I asked. The last meeting I went to, they were mentioning the governor not releasing the funds. Well, the question I asked the board was, what's Plan B?
Blame the governor.
Yeah.
Blame somebody else. Blame somebody other.
But what's their Plan B? And they don't have anything rolled out for Plan B.
Okay, so like I said, your former service, well, give me your service specifically so the viewer knows.
Oh, I served in the U.S. Navy from '97.
Yeah, Navy puke. I forgot about that. You're a squid.
Well, I spent high on the ASVAB.
You're a squid.
I had a good job.
Hey, I did too, but I won't go too far, but I was 99% on the ASVAB. And so the running joke is and you did what? And you did what? I said, I was infantry. And you did infantry and you scored a 99% on the ASVAB. I was like, yes. And I think I've shared with you before. I'm for, I think my son, or we have a generation that is fifth on my family. We're fourth, and we all serve infantry. So, I won't say I was precluded, but that's what it is. So Mike's a squid. For all my Navy homies out there, you can give me hell later. Mike's a squid, midshipman dude, go Army, goarmy.com. But, it's a service thing. And for us, Mike, and I know you can empathize with me on this one, I'm tired of people blaming other people. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And what, just stop passing the buck. Harry Truman, baby. Stop passing the buck. For 21 years, we've passed the buck. Everybody else is at fault. At what point do we put our damn boots on and say, let's strap up and get the job done? And so I'll be the first in line to say, ladies and gentlemen, again, I'm not just going to say that. I will or be in line to do whatever the hell is necessary to get this done. But there has to be some reciprocity on the other end, moving it in that direction. I'm trying. As a matter of fact, this show, in essence, is a try, right? You and I are talking about it. Myself and a bunch of young kids last week talked about it. We need to bring out this information so that you at home start asking more questions. Again, don't take my word for gospel. If you don't want to listen to me or don't believe in what I'm saying, or you think for 1 second that I might be giving you a half-truth or a not total truth, a lie, then by all means, don't listen to me and go ask the question yourself. Please, by all means. So for those of you that do know me, I do that because, I'm not going to lie to you, it just serves no purpose. And again, I've got time on my side, 21 years of expectation and waiting, 10 for my homie Mike, a decade waiting on that. Go ahead, Mike.
If they don't believe you, just go to the meetings.
Go to the meetings.
And look at the numbers. Look at the projections and stuff like that. They're not meeting expectations. Period.
Some of that is okay, so for apologists that believe that everything is great and right, and I said this on the show last week, and we talked to the kids afterward, there are plenty of good things that go on in our district. I'll be the first to say that. And we talk about them. And here's a great thing. I think more than enough people talk about all the great things, but nobody wants to address, or not enough people want to address the things that are not taking place. So you sweep it under the rug, and then guess what? There's a damn little mountain covered by a cloth That's what was under the rug. There's a little mountain and there's a cloth on the top of the mountain. Like, what the hell is that? Well, that's what was swept under that rug, and now it's a mountain.
No, there's good things going on in Central. I do agree. Honestly, when Mark started in the elementary, I was happy. Even at the junior high level, I was
oh, jeez.
Well, no, I mean, I had no issue.
No. Here's the guy. I'll hold you there. Here's why. You're gonna like do this. Shake your head like, yeah. Most people in general are comfortable or on a continuum of percentages. More of our population in Central Unified are good or okay moving through the system from K through 6 to 8. And then there's a marked drop off middle school into high school. And that's not coincidental. Numbers in terms of testing, scores, and other things begin to drop off. On a normed level, meaning like schools and comparisons, we fare worse as we go further into our grades. Meaning K through 1, 2, 3, we're about as good as like just most in the area. But as we move further back into those upper grades, we begin to drop off further and further. And that doesn't mean we don't have good kids. We do. But we have so many that the norm, the median, the middle of our population, and the lower income, lower performing, lower whatever student is falling off and falling by the wayside. So what you're telling me, you're indicative of a lot of parents in our community. Kids are usually okay coming through the system, and you get to high school, and then you're blasted with all these things that are not taking place.
Well, yeah, look at the AP test scores. I mean, from what I've seen before, I think their passing is like at 50%, which is kind of sad.
There are some that are not. I'm not going to speak for all because I know there's some that do well.
Yeah, no,
some,
there is.
But as a whole, as a total, and I will speak to this with some concern and some expertise. I taught AP, an AP course. I taught AP Euro and coached and taught academic decathlon, a top-end intellectual, a heavier intellectual program. It's like we have volume, and when they do speak good of our programs AP-wise, we talk about volume. Bigger is not always better. In our case, we're 4,300 students. That doesn't mean we're better. If you told me we were 4,300, and this is what I want so my listener gets it, 4,300 at 3 high schools, I'm good. Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, so some of you know, because we're down to our last couple of minutes, some of you, and we'll return. We're going to have to, there's still so much, but I'm going to have to get more parents on, and not just Mike's issues. Some of the things that Mike's raised are legit. They're going on, and he's dealing with them. And I'm going to hazard a guess and say that some of my listeners out there are probably also dealing with like issues. I have no doubt in my mind, because I got some comments in private messages from parents after last week's show. I got 2 or 3 calls specifically about Central High School just off of last week's show, not counting the Facebook messages and saying kind of similar things. In general, it's the same. It's like, we're overcrowded, we're too big, we're not getting this done. What I was going to say was 3.5 years ago, roughly, the 4 horsemen election that changed our board in terms of the new people that were elected. On one of those flyers and handouts, because we teamed those guys together and they ran as a group that was changing our community and our school system and doing something. One of the main bullet points, there were 5 bullet points, and I remember them explicitly because we came up with them, and then we designated each of those 4 board members one of those issues. And then the 5th issue, a lot of people don't know this, was quietly mine. The last issue was, we'll make Central Unified School District the best school district in the region. On our metric, on our rubric, not talking about how much money we make or whatever, but how good we are at achieving our own goals. One of those, and this is in my last minute, one of those on a ballot or on a post, not posted, but a flyer going out to our community to get those guys elected was, we need 3 high schools. We need to split 2 now. We need to split the 2 we have now because we need to build the 3rd. My point being is we actually need 3 high schools. And if that scares people, I'm sorry, but it's best for our education. I'm out of time. We're at 26 seconds, but I want people to remember that. We are so big that not only do we need to split the 2 we have, but we need to build a 3rd as well. We need 3 high schools. We have 3 middle schools, 14, 15 elementaries. We're the only school in the region that does that, and it's unacceptable. And that's where I'm at. If you don't agree, my apologies. Please feel free to give me a call or leave a message. We will be on next week. Thank you, SuperMex listeners. Thank you, Mike, for being here and giving me your time. And we're out. So we're wrapped up. Hold on one second, Mike. So we are, this is the part, we'll get out here in a second, Woody, because I got to get going. We're in overtime. That's what I tell people. We're in overtime, Mike. The overtime component to the show. So, listener, you're still there doing this stuff. So a few minutes after the fact, we close the books. We're off air in terms of the radio, but still talking, and we're still live on Facebook. So I'm going to guess, Mike, you're with me on that. We not only need to split the two campuses we have.
No, I totally agree. I mean, and honestly, it's funny because there's a rumor that I heard from a friend that's in the area.
Don't give me rumors, man.
No,
you give me rumors.
No, they were saying that.
Give me rumors.
They were saying that I don't like sports and I don't have kids in the district. And I was just like, really? Like, if they
that's just misinformation.
I know, and it's misinformation. And I'm like, if they actually took the time to know me, I'm like one of the most competitive guys in sports, but I also cherish education. And
which I'll say also, it should be our priority.
Yeah,
it is. I mean, do I want your daughter to do well? Do I want my daughter to do well? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Competitively, athletically, but and listen, there are things. So my daughter's in aquatics and running. And I'll probably get myself into trouble, but nobody will ever accuse me of not telling the entire truth or lying or half-truthing. The aquatics program and the running program, track, did well this last year. They won a Valley Championship. The little boy was on here yesterday. But she runs distance. And so the things that we do are not great programs. I mean, they're not like football. Football's number one in the Valley right now.
Oh, yeah.
Basketball has won 2 Valley titles. I think our volleyball. Volleyball is, I got to get a girl team in there. Volleyball is like either, correct me if I'm wrong, listener, but I think volleyball is ranked number one.
Yeah, I think they're number one. Right?
Yeah, I think they're number one. So we do have some successes. So I'm hard-headed like you. So we're hard-headed together. But don't we want that for all of them?
Yeah.
I want to be good at everything. I want to be number one at everything. And if somebody tells me that, oh, you can't, I'm sorry, I can't accept that. You know what I mean? I can't just roll over and say, we can't be number one in everything. I want to be number one in everything. I want to make the attempt, and I want to try to be number one in everything. What I can't accept is it being acceptable that a sport, one sport, or some sports, and now I'm going beyond, not just sport, listener, but anything in our system is not number one, or we're not trying to. I can legitimately say, if you tell me we're not number one in something, and I know you'll be okay with it too. I mean, this is being rational. If we're not okay in something, meaning number one, but we're trying, and we're moving in that direction, and we're progressing,
You go out there and compete.
and work hard, do it with some discipline, do it with some humility, do it with some aggression, and do it with a sense of style and class, then I'm okay. I mean, I'm okay with that.
And that's how I coach my girls. I coach soccer, by the way. I coached in Central youth soccer leagues for years, and now I'm actually with Alliance Competitive Soccer as an assistant coach. And actually 90% of our team, those girls go to Central. They're gonna go to Central schools. And all I ask for them, I'd like to win. It's competitive, but right now at this age, just go out there and compete. That's all I ask. Just go out there and try and compete. Try your best. Try the best to be number one.
I do know this, that there are some sports that have some challenges. I'm going to say this again because I'm like relatively new to aquatics and water polo. And we're getting busted up pretty bad, at least on the girls' side. I think the boys, yes, they're a little bit better. We're getting beat up pretty good on the girls' side. And I've heard a bunch of different reasons and rationales why, from parents, from coaches, from administrators, and it all ends up to be, I'm going to use this one, it ends up being a nothing burger for me. Here's why. People are blaming people and saying, oh, we need a better coach. Oh, we need parent involvement. It all ends up being, like I was saying earlier, like we were talking about, it's everybody else's fault. It's always somebody else's fault. There was a lady that called me last week, She took me to task. She wanted me to be a little less harsh in language. I'm listening. I listened to you, lady, and I'm toning down because I think you can tell, and I think she told me, like, when we were discussing this, she knows who she is. She goes, "You're extremely passionate." I said, "I'm beyond passion, man. I'm convicted. I'm conviction. It's beyond passion. I want the result. I want to do now." Okay, but here's the point. In aquatics, at least in aquatics, and this is what I've learned, Mike, is that we only have one pool. And we're sharing that pool out in a community of 14, 15 elementaries, 3 middle schools,
Wow.
and 1 high school where we bus kids from over 3 campuses. In essence, it's not, quote me, my listener, SuperMex listener, Central listener, quote me, it's not the coach's fault. It's not the kid's fault. It's not the parents' fault. If there's a fault, it's ours. Let's just say as a whole, we need to take ownership of and make them do something about it. When I say make them do something about it, I'm talking about our leadership and administration. Make them do it. And say, oh, there's no money. How the hell do all these other communities and all these other schools build these things, and we're the only ones that don't? We have one pool for 3 campuses, 3 middle schools, 14, 15 elementaries. So in essence, it's not a coach's fault. It's not a kid's fault. It's not any of their faults in the trenches as a soldier or as a sailor on the ship, but it's not their fault. It's we have to demand and have an expectation that they're going to give our kids at least a minimum standard of what they need to not have to look, and I'm going to say it, and I hate saying it, not have to look that Clovis team in the eye on the other side, knowing that they're going to get trounced and beat up because they haven't had the same time in the pool. They don't have the amount of time because they don't have as many pools. It's resources. They don't have the tools necessary to be successful. And you know how this goes. Okay, you're a serviceman. For me, it was like, and you can give me an analogy too. If I don't have the right rifle, if I don't have my ammunition, if I don't have my gear, everything from a poncho for cold weather to my Kevlar, if I don't have those things, it's hard for me to be a great soldier. And it's hard for our students to be great students and have rational expectation if we are not giving them the same tools and resources that other students and schools have. That's in aquatics, by the way. That's just one aspect. You're seeing it because, I mean, you're coaching soccer.
Yeah.
I think we do okay in soccer. Yes.
No,
at the high school level, then don't we have decent teams?
Honestly, I don't think this. I just concentrate.
So let's do this as the parent, because I want to educate parents that don't know. You're dealing with it directly. In terms of facilities and facility use, do you get what you need as a coach and as a parent working with kids in facilities? Do we have enough fields to?
Oh, yeah.
So we're okay on that.
Well, soccer's easy because I mean you can go to any park really and have a practice because you just need a ground.
Okay,
pool,
so that's much easier.
Yeah, it's much easier than a pool because a pool you got to dig.
Much more specific.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of like, okay, so now we're getting to the disparity of sport, right?
Yeah.
Disparity of sport. You need a pool to actually get better in aquatics.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Fact. So clearly we don't have what we need. That's just a fact, and our kids do not reach that level. I'll just say, because I'm watching my daughter get beat up and her friends get beat up in water polo right now. And not to make an excuse for my daughter, because she's new. She's still learning. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's not gonna like that, but she doesn't know what she's doing. She's getting beat up and roughed up. But wrestling, okay, I'm a lifelong wrestling guy. I've coached wrestling for decades. We don't have enough adequate facilities for wrestling either, by the way. The high school wrestling room isn't a wrestling room. It's a converted something. It was a multi-purpose facility room, but it's not adequate as a wrestling. You can quote me on that. It's not a real wrestling room. My opinion, they should be using that room. Watch this. You're going to like this. They should probably be using the room they have now for wrestling for like cheer and dance and other things. Use those mats for tumbling and stuff like that and build a legitimate, adequate, real, consult, by the way, with a real wrestling coach or somebody that, hell, I'll volunteer. I'm a real wrestling coach. I'll help you, tell you how to build it. Go ahead.
Didn't they lose a coach because they didn't have adequate facilities for wrestling? Wasn't the coach Buchanan over at Central?
Okay, the coach that's at Buchanan now, and I'll just say it, and this might not make some people happy, but he was never going to stay very long anyway.
Oh, okay.
And you can quote me on that, and I'll say it if he were here.
But I mean,
if that coach were here right now, I'd tell him you were never going to stay here. He's a Clovis guy.
Oh,
He came over here, picked up a check, and got out by saying that we didn't have a real wrestling. Now, I'm not making an excuse for not having the wrestling because we don't have a real wrestling. That's a fact. You can quote me on that. I'm alumni, and I was captain of our wrestling team. I know wrestling. I know what we don't have. That coach was not going to stay. And any coach that comes here and says, oh, I'm leaving because you don't have a good wrestling room. I'm sorry, ma'am, but that's bullshit. It is. It's an excuse and a rationalization to get out. Okay, he was never going to stay here long term, so it's not that. But wrestling does not have. So let's wrap up a little bit. Like I said, we're in overtime. But I want, Mike's with me, and we've talked about these things. I mean, Mike has made more than enough effort. Mike actually has gone to board meetings, which is shocking because not everybody goes to board meetings. You got to educate yourself, fellow Grizzlies. You got to educate yourself, please. Again, if somebody's telling you directly to not listen to him and go and find out for yourself, it's probably because that person's telling you the truth. I'm telling you the truth. Don't just take my word for it. Ask questions, and don't just accept answers on the surface because they seem like nice people giving them to you. I mean, it could be my brother, sister, or family relation or lifelong friend. But if they're not telling me the truth, I'll call them out on it. Listen and inform yourself. Ask questions. Want to know why. Why don't we have this? Why don't we have that? Why are we still lagging behind these other things? Why are we waiting 21 years to split the two campuses we have? So I want to wrap up with that with Mike, because I know I've given him an earful over a lifetime, over the last year or two that I've gotten to know him, and he's in firm belief with me. Now we started the show with him saying he moved here because he thought we were going to get a shiny brand new high school. Give your daughter the new toy, and hopefully she's quiet for a little bit. That's dirty, right? But here's where it is. A lot of people that moved into this community, like Mike, and I'm Old Central. I didn't, and I said this last time or 2 weeks ago, I didn't own all the land. I just picked everything on it. So I'm Old Central, believe it or not. My family's been here. It's Ortiz. If you were at Central over the last, at least from the 50s, 40s, 50s, my grandfather moved here after World War II. Put down roots, serviceman. Highly decorated in the Pacific. Bronze Star with Valor. Got a lot of love from my grandpa. He was something. He was a beast. So anyway, 50s into the 70s, 80s, and then I was in the 80s. There's no way you didn't go to school with an Ortiz. Why? Because there were 12 of them spread out over a few decades. So there's no way. So bottom line is, I'm Old Central. I welcome New Central. And I'm telling Old Central, we've got to have something for these people to want to stay, put down roots, and become Old Central too. And that means we have to have expectation of what it is. So let's make this one crystal clear and really, really simple. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't just need a new high school. We need to split the two that we have now because they're overcrowded, they're shuttling. It's not a conducive learning environment for education. And I'm talking about education specifically. In the classroom, what goes on here, it's not conducive to learning. So we need to split the two high schools that we have now and build a third. You're like, oh, how do we do that? Let's have the conversation first and then get to. I want to walk that bridge now. Let's not say in advance we can't. I'm tired of saying we can't. And I know, Mike, to you too, I'm tired of hearing excuses. I'm tired of hearing why we can't. I'm tired of blaming some governor that I've never met. I don't care what he's doing. What I care about is what can we do for ourselves? How do you not pass the buck? How do you, Central, find a way that we can take the ball in our own hands and let's take the shot ourselves? Like that sports analogy. That's for soccer, it's going to be, coach, pass the ball. I'll take the shot. I mean, I want Central to take the shot. I mean, that's a great analogy. I don't want us to be waiting for somebody to take the shot for us. And I will say this, Mike, and this is like a history for you, education history, learning. There was a time when we used to take the shot. We were smaller back then. But we were tough, man. I mean, we got a great education, and our guys were tough.
I don't know. I kind of like playing in baseball. It's almost like batting practice back in the day.
That's no doubt, PJ. You're Central now, so I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that mess.
Let me give a shout out to Coach Fonts.
He's the new coach.
He's
right?
the new coach. He was my varsity coach. Don't the person have McLean, but he's my varsity coach on McLean, and Central's got a good guy. Fonts, you're my favorite coach. I ain't gonna lie.
Uh-oh.
You're my favorite big
I
coach.
met him like once or twice.
No, I like Fonts. I don't know if you remember me, but
So let's do this. So on a positive note, for all of you guys that say we're entirely negative, I'm not just negative. I'm entirely positive. I stand my ground, right?
Yeah.
I'll stand my ground, Woody. Okay, so he is. Give me the skinny. Is he going to build the program? Is he going to give us the beast? You like that? Is he going to give us the beast?
He has the knowledge to build a good baseball program. He's a good coach. He's a good coach. It's just, are the kids willing to put in the work?
I don't want to do that. Hey, I'm gonna hold you to task. I don't want to pass the buck. Here's why. I'm gonna tell you why. Because I'm a firm believer. Like I don't know Coach Fonts at all. You know, I just met him once or twice here or there, and it was just like more in passing with my wife, who deals with them more than I do. But I do expect leadership from our head coaches and
he's a player's coach.
I want us to build a monster. Because I think we can have an incredible baseball, softball situation. But I mean consistently. And I'm not talking about we spike up once in a while and we have a great group that comes through. I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about building the central machinery, the mechanism that is our way of doing business and conducting ourselves athletically and academically, and that we're so damn good because we have a method and a process. I will say this without getting too far. Clovis Unified does have a method and a process. I don't think we have to be the only ones that don't in the region. They do, clearly, but I know that we can put together a method and a process that can defeat them. Because I will say, you know, and we'll get into that, but I think person for person, our girls, our guys, I think we're tougher than they are. I do. I believe we're tougher. I think we can be tougher and meaner and more aggressive, and we can get the job done. All right, so I'm gonna last call is what I'm gonna do because he brought it up, right? He give it a shout out. So Coach Fonts, if you do listen to it, you're gonna like this a lot. I'll call you out equally. It's about equanimity, baby. I do love the equality of it. So Coach Fonts, if you're listening or anybody, relay this message to him. So my homie Mike Cruz is giving Coach Fonts a shout out. Outstanding. And I'm gonna expect Coach Fonts to relish and run with that shout out. But I'm going to expect Coach Fonts to turn around and call Mike Cruz and say, what can you do to help me? Yes?
No,
yes?
If you would call, I'd go out there.
Okay.
I would go out
You
there.
heard it here. So some way or another, you are on board with Coach Fonts. You're going to help or do whatever the hell it takes to make it outstanding. Listen, Central, that's how you build community. You speak honestly, truthfully. You put people on the spot, and you get them to be honest and truthful in return, and guess what? Great things will happen. So say bye to Mike. I'm out. I'll see you guys next week with the larger panel. We've got to get some moms. We're going to get some moms because they have a perspective, too, that's unique, and I like being even-handed and fair. So thank you, Central. I look forward to seeing you out in the community. Have a good day. Bye.